Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our bi-monthly webinar. We're going to wait a couple minutes while people get logged in and join us. So just hold tight and we'll be starting very soon. Thank you so much. Hi to everyone who just joined. This is Emily Lemiska, Director of Communications for US Pain Foundation. We're going to wait just another minute or two before we start, so just hang tight and we'll be with you shortly. Hi, everyone who just joined. This is Emily Lemiska with US Pain Foundation. We're going to be starting the webinar in just a couple minutes. We're just waiting for people to log on. So we'll be with you shortly. Just hang tight and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, so it's a few minutes after 1 p.m., so I think we're going to get started. I first want to make sure that everyone can see my screen okay. If someone could just let me know.
Looks fine. Looks good.
Thank you, Shayna. Okay, so welcome to our bi-monthly webinar. This is our bi-monthly chance to touch base with our members and our community and let you know about some of the things we have going on, but also share with you a really wonderful expert speaker. Today, that's going to be Dr. Peter Abaci, who we're very excited to have with us. So here is our full agenda. So we'll be going through some department updates. There are a few staff changes because we had some emergencies and a couple people couldn't make it today. Then we'll take some questions from you. And then following that, probably about 1:15, 1:20, we'll start the featured presentation from Dr. Abaci. And at the end of that, we're very excited that we get to raffle off one of Dr. Abaci's books called Conquer Your Chronic Pain. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll be selecting a random attendee who's still on at the end of the call, and we'll send you a book. And once we do that, at the very end, we'll have some more time for some questions with Dr. Abaci. You can ask him about what he's talked about and just get your questions answered. And some housekeeping items, as always, but for those of you who haven't joined us before, you can ask questions at any time by typing them into the control panel at the right under questions. We'll answer questions again at the end of the department updates and then again at the end of the keynote presentation. If you have to jump off the call for some reason, we record webinars, and the link will be available in the next newsletter. It will be available on our website at uspainfoundation.org/webinars. So you can always view the recordings and the slideshows after the fact. And then finally, at the end, as always, we'll have a little feedback survey. I think it's like 5 questions, but it really helps us make sure that we're giving you the best information you need. And sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background, guys. He's being kind of noisy today. But yeah, just take that and let us know how we're doing and what kind of, if you found the presentations helpful and what you'd like to see more of. And that's very useful for us. So without further ado, we can get started with our ambassador update. And I know Lori had an emergency, so she's not going to be here. But Jackie, are you on and able to present? Let's see here. Okay, don't think Jackie is on. So I'm going to just read through these for us. I'll do my best. So as most of you know, oh, sorry.
It's not Jackie, but this is Nicole, and I could read them if you'd like.
Oh, sure, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. So first off, I just want to say thank you everybody who has been working tirelessly through Pain Awareness Month. It has been such a successful month so far, and we are so excited for everything that we've done together. And I wanted to give you just a couple of the things that we have already been able to accomplish. We have 18 state proclamations that have been received and 55 city and town proclamations. Light Up the Landmarks was such a great success. That was on September 9th. And it's due to all of you guys who contacted different people, different offices and buildings, and asked them to show their support for pain awareness. We want to thank everyone for their unbelievable amount of requests for informational resources to distribute, as well as our Pain Warrior bracelets. So thank you guys for everything and for sharing our posts and our 30-day challenges. We really, really appreciate it. And together we are united. So a couple of other things that we have done so far this year is we've had a couple of pain awareness tables that were held at different events. We had one this past weekend in Lexington, Massachusetts. And then we've had a lot of people who are displaying our Beautify in Blues in different locations. We've had over 70, as I mentioned, the Light Up the Landmarks. We had 70 locations nationwide that participated.
Awesome, thank you, Nicole. And just a reminder to everyone who's on that, so we have our daily social media challenge where we post sort of like a fun task for you to participate in. And tomorrow we're actually going to be having a challenge where you can win a device called a VibraCool for you and a friend. So check out our Facebook page and our Twitter page for that information. A VibraCool is like a very neat little device that you can wear that uses like ice and vibrations to help deal with pain. So that's just one example of sort of the fun little activities we have for you throughout the month. So yeah, so make sure you're keeping an eye on our social media for that sort of stuff, but definitely tomorrow for a good chance to win something cool. All right, so next up we have our state advocacy update with Shayna Smith. Shayna, are you there?
Yep, I am.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. So thanks for joining our call this afternoon. I'm excited to give you a little bit of an update as to what we're working on here in the Advocacy Network. So the first bullet point you'll see is that we're looking for you to really help us design all of our initiatives that we're going to try to tackle in 2019. And to do that, we created a survey to better determine what really matters most to people living with chronic pain and their caregivers. So by helping us learn the important issues of our population, we're paving the way for future advocacy campaigns. So your participation in this survey is really invaluable in the strategic planning process of our advocacy network. Right now, the survey is being finalized. It will include some questions about our existing priority issues, whether or not you think we should continue advocating for those existing issues or some new patient topics in 2019, and then what other issues impact you personally that you think we should be focusing our energies on. So this is a great opportunity for you to really become a patient advocate stakeholder as we start to strategize how we want to approach the rest of this year and also the beginning of next year's legislative session. We also have some upcoming training webinars. So this is an idea we've been tossing around for a long time, and we're pleased to announce now that we are going to be offering some additional resources for you all to be well equipped and prepared to make positive changes within our community. So we have tentatively planned some dates and topics, so I'll just name a few right now, and you'll get more information once we finalize those dates, times, and topics in our constant contact e-alert that we send out to all of you. So one webinar is going to be an Advocacy 101 training that will take a real deep dive into federal and state government and its makeup, how a bill becomes law, some strategies for you as an advocate to develop meaningful relationship with policymakers, and some other helpful tips. So we're hoping to have that training seminar in October. And then another training is going to focus on the power of social media and how that platform is really being utilized by US Pain and others, and not only sharing the patient story, but really changing public policy. And we're hoping to offer that in November. And we have some other topics that we're hoping to cover in our training series, such as copay accumulators, biologics, step therapy, abuse deterrent formulations, and maybe also creating one that takes a look at what we're expecting to see take place in the 2019 legislative session. So we're very excited about that. The last bullet point on this slide is preparing for November. A few years ago, we launched this month-long educational campaign. It really tries to focus on all things chronic pain. So during November, we provide you all with information about various complex diseases on our social media platform. And we also try to host educational webinars and other online events. And we try to develop a theme to surround our daily November facts with, and also those online events and presenters. So this year we're hoping to focus on pediatric pain warriors, really just all things related to pediatric pain. So be on the lookout for a full detailed schedule on this year's November events taking place. And I also really encourage you all to share and retweet those posts that relate to this educational campaign. Next slide, Emily. Okay, so I'm really excited to note that we did have some victory in Illinois on House Bill 4146 that has now officially become law. So under Public Act 100-1052, health plans cannot undercut access to care by removing a drug from the formulary or by negatively changing its status or cost-sharing tier unless your insurance plan is going to notify you at least 60 days before a coverage change occurs. So now health plans in Illinois must notify patients of any specific drugs that are involved in a coverage change. They have to include the steps that you as a patient can take to request coverage determinations and exceptions. And they also have to notify your doctor and provide a really easy mechanism to authorize continuation of coverage. So when the health plan in Illinois notifies your doctor about any mid-year formulary changes, they have to include a one-page form for your doctor to fill out or instructions to access an online portal where your doctor can easily request that the health plan continues providing coverage because it's necessary, medically necessary. So this is just one example of how the patient voice really matters. We wouldn't have been able to move this bill along without our advocates in Illinois. So thank you so much. And we are hoping to continue offering this type of legislation in other states in 2019. So if you're involved, if you're ready, send me an email and I will put you to work. In Oregon, and I don't know if I say that state right, it's Oregon, whichever. So the Medicaid program update, many of you might have seen our campaign that we have online. It is still ongoing. We are told that the task force that's taking a look at possibly making some changes to the state's Medicaid program will be having a meeting actually this Thursday. And so what we're hoping for is that all of you can head on over to our advocacy section on our website and see if you can participate in our online campaign that we have going on right now. You'll see that there's a little image at the bottom of the screen there where you can go in and just really be able to send a letter to the task force and let them know that you are not okay with these recommendations. That campaign really goes into full detail about what we're talking about, but basically there could be some unintended negative consequences if they were to make changes to their Medicare program. So please go online, especially if you live in the state, and participate on that campaign. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shayna. So one other absence we have today is Cindy is at an appointment and couldn't join us, but she sent over her information, so I'm going to do my best to go through this with you because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on at the federal level. So first and foremost, the Pain Management Best Practices Task Force, which is at the Department of Health and Human Services, it's going to have its second meeting on September 25th and 26th. And just as a reminder, this task force is exactly what it sounds like. It's an enormous federal effort to make sure there are no inconsistencies in guidelines for pain management and kind of go over best practices and the best ways to approach care for pain patients. And we're very fortunate that Cindy, who couldn't be here today, is the only patient representative on this task force of 28 people that were appointed by the US Secretary of Health. So it's a very big deal. HHS oversees the FDA and the CDC, so it's a really important group. So at this meeting, they're going to be discussing some subcommittee recommendations. The deadline to submit public comment did end yesterday. We had publicized that in our newsletter. Hopefully some of you saw that. But you can still register to attend online or in person. So basically they do a webinar of the entire day's meetings. So that link right there helps you sign up to watch. Or if you live in the DC area and want to go, they do allow public comments for attendees. You just have to register in advance. So just something to keep in mind. Big timely news is that HR 6, the Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018, the Senate passed its version of the bill last night. It's a huge bill. It's 300 plus pages. And Cindy had been sort of, she wasn't really happy with what was in the bill. She said that some aspects of the Senate bill are better than the House bill. For example, the pain research section calls for epidemiology and research into acute and chronic pain, more identification of biomarkers for pain, and trying to increase the number of treatments available to patients. But then there are some downsides, like they're continuing to really push against opioid prescribing. And one thing that she was very worried about was identifying outlier prescribers and taking corrective action against them, because it's such a broad term and could be, sort of scary for pain specialists. So the House and Senate versions of this bill still must be reconciled. So it's going to be changing a little bit, but we do encourage you to contact your federal reps if you have concerns about this bill and let them know. And if you check out the US Pain Foundation website, we did do a news story about the bill in more detail. I think it was in last month's issue. So if you want to learn more about the bill before you reach out to your senator or your representative, just do a little search for HR 6 on the US Pain website. Okay, so right before we get to our keynote presentation, we just have some final general updates. Since I'm sure you're probably sick of hearing me talk, so Nicole will go over a couple of these, and then we'll sort of tag team this area.
Great, thanks, Emily. So we do have some really exciting updates to share with everyone today. We have 2 Take Control of Your Pain Patient Education Day events that are scheduled for October 20th in Chicago and November 10th in Boston. Details to learn more about the day, how to register, it is free to attend. You can visit uspainfoundation.org/TCOYP. We will also be live streaming the October 20th event, and the November 10th event will be posted on our website at a later date. So if you aren't in those areas and cannot be there in person, there are ways that you can participate or at least listen to the information after the event passes. I am super excited to discuss this next update, which is our osteoarthritis chronic low back pain invisible project has been published and is now available. Please check out invisibleproject.org for more information. And if you would like to receive a copy of the magazine, please either email myself or you can reach out to Lori. So it would either be Nicole at uspainfoundation.org or Lori at uspainfoundation.org. Next week, we have another webinar that is on patient empowerment in clinical trials. So it'll be talking about what it is, how important a clinical trial is, what it means, moving the research from being a research subject to becoming a stakeholder. And that will be September 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. And you can find out more details through our Facebook page. And then the last update is on our new blog that you can look at. It is called Remedy, and visit uspainfoundation.org/blog.
Awesome, thank you so much. And just for those of you who don't know, the Take Control of Your Pain Day events are educational events. So it's a free day-long seminar that has different clinical experts, patient advocates. We basically bring in whoever we can find in that area that is really a rock star in pain management and in chronic pain, and present those to you. So it can be really awesome. If you're in those areas, you should definitely go. And I just wanted to add about the blog. The blog is called Remedy, and it's sort of, even though we have our monthly newsletter, this is going to be a little bit more treatment focused and patient focused. So we have some patients writing for it. We have some clinicians writing for it. So we're very excited about that. We hope you check it out and enjoy those articles. So if anyone has any questions about the things we just went over, I know it was pretty quick, you can type them in on the right. Or if you want to email someone directly, here is all of our email addresses. So we always welcome your questions and your feedback. I did get one comment from Rowena so far who says that she's excited for what is to come for us. And also someone who asked, what does PAM stand for, which is Pain Awareness Month. We're silly because we tend to shorten it because we use it so much, but PAM is for Pain Awareness Month. So any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, I don't see anything, but feel free to email us at any time. It's just some last minute reminders before we go over to the keynote presentation with Dr. Abaci. If you aren't signed up as an advocate or an ambassador with US Pain, we encourage you to do so. That way you'll always be tied in to anytime we have an opportunity or an event or a call to action. And you can do that at our website at uspainfoundation.org/get-involved. And finally, if you're an ambassador and you'd like to earn ambassador credit for attending today's webinar, please visit this link here, tinyurl.com/uspainactivity. I'm just going to make sure I get that right. Okay, so without further ado, we are very, very excited to have Dr. Abaci here today. He is truly an incredible expert in the pain management world, but he's also a doctor that really cares about his patients. So he's really the best of both worlds, a great doctor and a great person. So I'm just going to kind of go over his bio so you understand his background, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Abaci. So Dr. Abaci is certified in anesthesia and pain management by the American Board of Anesthesiology. He attended medical school at the University of Southern California. During his last year of residency, he served as chief resident and participated in a senior elective in pain management. That experience sparked an interest that led him to UC San Francisco, where he completed his fellowship training in pain management. He's been in private practice since 1996, and he now serves as medical director of the nationally recognized Bay Area Pain and Wellness Center located in Los Gatos, California, which he co-founded with Dr. John Messi. A widely respected expert on chronic pain management, he is the author of 2 books on chronic pain. Dr. Abaci began his quest to radically change conventional chronic pain thinking and treatment after dealing with the agony of his second anterior cruciate ligament or ACL tear. There is help for conquering chronic pain and hope for healing and long-term health. Dr. Abaci focuses on developing alternative solutions to treating chronic pain. So with that, Dr. Abaci, are you there? Let's see, I think you're on mute. I just unmuted you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to switch screens to you. So hold on one second. So hopefully you'll see a pop-up asking you to share your screen. Okay. We can see your cool.
You see
Yeah, we can see your PowerPoint. It's not full screen. There we go. You might want to go into view and slideshow. Oh, there we go. I just saw it. Perfect. Okay, looks great. Okay, so we can see your screen, so whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the really nice introduction. And it's an honor to be doing this with you all on Pain Awareness Month. And I think I'm excited to do this talk because it's really about the good news that what we're learning about how we really have a lot of power and control in conquering our pain. And the objective that I have in putting this together and really what I do in my practice and what I write about and what I want to talk about today, I really only want you to accomplish one thing, and that's to have a great life with chronic pain. You know, when you think about all the different noise around pain and all the controversy about what to do about medications and how to take care of people and what to do, at the end of the day, whatever it is that the plan or strategy or what we're trying to accomplish, it's really about helping people have a good life, have a great life with whatever medical issues they're dealing with. And that's what I want you to be able to figure out with whatever information I can give you today. So people who know me know that I'm a diehard Harry Potter fan, but I think that there's some interesting take-home messages in some of the Harry Potter books, and this is a picture from the movie that was made about the book, The Deathly Hallows. And Dumbledore and Harry are having this conversation right after Harry got, zapped by Voldemort, and he's in this sort of purgatory place that looks like the train station, and he, after having this sort of philosophical discussion and realizing that a part of the evil of Voldemort is within him, a part of him, he asked the question, is this real or is this all in my head, what we're talking about and what's going on? And Dumbledore says, well, of course it's in your head, but why wouldn't that not make it real? And I think that is a lot to do with how we experience pain and how we can more effectively manage pain. So the first part of this is basically looking at the structure and function of our nervous system and how it's impacted and changed by pain, and how we can actually take charge of the situation and regain the structure and function that we want to kind of retake our health back. So the first part of this is within our brain, we have what's called the gray matter, and that's the big volume that we see of the nerve cells, basically making up this large mass of gray matter, and we can consider that to be our hardware. That's where our action is. And then we have the white matter, which is, you can consider the cables and cords of your computer system, and they basically help things work better, help the message get around more efficiently. And with chronic pain, we see that there are changes in brain structure. So the structural makeup of the brain starts to change, and this leads to changes in function, how the nervous system starts to behave and act, and how it interacts with the body all starts to change because of these structural changes that take place. So the brain game is, we want to win this game. What can we learn? What tools or tricks can we learn to outplay our pain and win this battle, win this game? And the first is the concept of neuroplasticity. And basically, our brain is a very moldable, shapeable, adaptable thing. It's always evolving and changing. It's never static. So it has the ability to adapt and grow and do different things depending on what we feed it, how we treat it, and how we take advantage of that. So that's powerful. Second concept in this brain game is neurogenesis, meaning we actually have the ability to grow new nerve cells within our brain, within our nervous system, at least in certain parts of the brain. And this is powerful too, because we used to not really realize that until last couple decades. A lot of emerging research shows that even in late stages of life, even in old age, we have the ability to grow new nerve cells, which adds a lot more power to the brain. And another concept, and all of this, is something called epigenetics. And epigenetics is certainly an interesting area of research in going on in pain management. And basically what we see is the way that we express our genes can be modified or changed. And so we can turn genes on and off. And what we see with the onset of chronic pain is that the certain genes get turned on or expressed in certain ways. And so there's sort of a turning on or turning off when we're in chronic pain versus not in chronic pain. So it doesn't mean the sequence of the genes change, but the way they get expressed changes. And things that can impact that have to do with, things like environmental factors, things that we can control. Another important player in this brain game are the glial cells. And we know about the nerves, the neurons in our nervous system, in our brains, but we also have these other cells known as microglia. And we used to think that they were just a support network to provide nutrition and things like that to help keep the neurons working well. But now what we've learned over the last decade or so, with a lot of interesting research on chronic pain, is that the glial cells actually play a big role in the sort of turning on of pain into a more of a chronic state. And kind of use the analogy of fueling the flames. Like when you have a fire and then the wind blows and carries the flames and spreads them around. That's kind of what the glial cells do. They sort of stoke the fire and make the chronic pain situation more chronic and more intense. So the good news with all of this is the neuroplasticity, the neurogenesis, modifying how we express our genes, what goes on with the glial cells. These are all things we got the power over. We have the power to win this game, and that's more about what I want to talk about next. So some of these structural and functional changes in the brain that I was mentioning from pain, mood regulation is one. Certainly the way that our emotions and how we feel about certain things, that changes very quickly. Memory and learning. We now know that pain, the experience of pain, the ongoing experience of pain, has a significant impact on like the hippocampus, which is a key learning area. The stress response, the way that we experience stress, whether we're in a stress response, the fight or flight response or not, we see changes in how we respond to stress and what's going on with our stress mediators in our body. Then the reward system. How we get rewarded, how we feel about things that happen during our day, that gets modified by the experience of pain. And then another key change has to do with motivation and decision making. Are we going to get out of bed today? Are we going to leave the house? Are we going to leave our room? Are we going to go to work? Are we going to go to the gym and exercise? What kind of decisions are we going to make about ourselves and our day? That gets readily changed by ongoing pain. Impulse control. What we say, what we do, how we regulate our actions, that definitely gets modified when we're in pain. opinions and judgments. What we think about things, how we feel about things, it starts to change. How what we enjoy in life and how we feel about certain situations all gets modified. Then our attitude, our thoughts, our feelings, our opinions, our judgments, all these things get disrupted and modified when we're in pain. Then homeostasis is the way we sort of maintain balance throughout our system between our mind and body, that sort of connection and the balance that we keep, that gets modified and changed when we're in pain. And then interestingly, sensory perception, how we perceive things, like for example, touch, and do things start to feel hard to discriminate where we feel things? Do things start to feel more painful maybe? Our sensory system, the way it gets processed in the brain, goes through significant changes sometimes. So conquering this pain brain, we want to create structural change. And to do that, we use the R's: remodel, rework, revise, reconfigure, regenerate, rejuvenate. And the last one, repetition, I think is an important take-home one. When we're trying to create wholesale neuroplastic changes, positive changes within our nervous system to make us feel better and be healthier, we have to keep working at it over and over again. We have to do repetition, and we learn valuable lessons about that when we study stroke patients and stroke rehabilitation work, and that the process that it takes to get neurologic function back. Some of the lessons that we learn from some of those other problems we can use in our own sort of conquering of the pain brain. So I've written about this in the past, and I talk about this, my 5 key elements of success. And these are the 5 elements that I think you want to think about, that you want to have maybe a cheat sheet for in putting together your best winning pain management strategy. So these are the 5 things to keep in the back of your mind. The first one is mobility. You want your treatment plan to be focused, or in some level, on how mobile you are. And when you think about it, your quality of life, how engaged you are, where you go, what you do, how much you get out of life, a lot of it has to do with how mobile we are. And so if you're losing that or not as mobile as you'd like to be, you want part of your treatment plan to help you get around better in whatever way that can be done. Second key element has to do with interaction. And we've learned now that the quality of our health and happiness in life, a lot of it has to do with the quality of our social connections, our social bonds. And what we see with pain is we lose a lot of our social connectivity and social bonds, because maybe we've become more homebound, we're more socially withdrawn, maybe we're not going to work anymore, we're not going to social functions like we used to. And so all of those things disconnect us in different ways, and that decreases our quality of life and our potential for happiness. And so treatments and a plan that helps improve and the quality and the volume of social connectivity is an important part of a good strategy. My third one is independence. Nobody wants to be dependent on other people if they can help it. And when you're working with your doctors or your healthcare team, having a plan or addressing factors that make you more independent is going to be really helpful, I think, as far as quality of life factors go, self-esteem things, really important. Fourth one, maybe you've never thought about, is validation. And I believe that we all need to feel validated with what we're going through and with the shoes that we walk in. And nobody can really know exactly what our journey is like unless you're the person in those shoes. And I think a lot of times patients with chronic pain that I talk with, I think a lot of times they feel maybe misunderstood or not understood by friends, family, co-workers, their doctors, the insurance world. There's a lot of areas where people feel like they're just not really being well understood. And I think learning how to communicate and educate the people in your lives is going to be an important part of bringing that validation in, which I think we all need. Last one is love. This is, I think, the most fundamental, most important, basic thing that we all need in life is love. And I think nothing can take a hit more than a chronic pain problem when it comes to love. And to really be fulfilled and satisfied with love in our life, it really has to be a two-way street. It needs to be, we need to, of course, we all need to be loved, and we all have a need to feel love. But I think to be really fulfilled and satisfied in life, we also need to be able to express love to other people. And so I think it needs to be a two-way thing. And if pain has taken love out of your life in some way, whether it's losing social interactions, losing friends, losing a significant other, family, whatever it is, part of your plan, part of your strategy should in some way be able to bring love back in. So next I want to move on to what I call the storm. And what we've learned is when we're experiencing chronic pain, about 50% of the time, people with chronic pain are experiencing some sort of trauma type symptoms, which is a really high volume. And with trauma, when we start to feel trauma symptoms, we manifest that with things like mood swings, flashbacks, panic attacks. We start to feel isolated. We don't want to talk to people, and we can get really bad nightmares. And when we're feeling threatened in some way, when we're feeling like a sense of danger or trauma, we go through this fight or flight response where our body goes through all these different changes to basically get away from danger or defeat the danger. But also, interesting, some trauma experts have also come up with a third sort of reaction, which is freeze. And when we're in a state of high trauma, we can just freeze up and just not do anything, and we just sort of don't know what to do. And I believe that when it comes to chronic pain, there's three different types of trauma situations that we see. The first one has to do with the injury itself. We can have a traumatic injury like falling off a roof or a bad car accident, or some sort of bad injury can be traumatic, and that can precipitate the onset of trauma symptoms that go hand in hand with the ongoing pain symptoms, and that's probably the most obvious. The second type of trauma that we see with chronic pain is when somebody has had a prior traumatic experience, maybe even many years ago, maybe even in childhood in some cases, and the memory of that gets stored away in our nervous system, but we sort of forget about it. And then we go along with our lives, and then all of a sudden we start to feel chronic pain from some sort of medical condition, and those trauma symptoms all of a sudden get triggered and unleashed again within our nervous system, and we start to feel these mood swings, flashbacks, panic attacks. These things start to come out again, and part of it has to do with a prior traumatic experience. The third phase of trauma, and I see this a lot too, is being in pain for a long time is traumatic of itself. And I've seen a lot of patients that I've worked with over the years who had no prior trauma history, maybe no psychological history of any issue, and have some sort of injury. Maybe they hurt their back at work or somewhere else. And after about 6 or 7 months, they start having panic attacks and nightmares, and all these sort of trauma symptoms start to come about. And regardless of the cause, it's important that we assess it, we look for it, and that we treat it effectively. We see this sort of hyperarousal where we're on high alert all the time, and there's different parts of our central nervous system that go into this sort of response mode, and I have some listed here on the slide. So calming this down, calming the storm down. One way to do that is through meditation, and there's still or active meditation. We know about the sort of mindfulness approach to meditation, the stillness associated with that. There's also more active forms of meditation, like walking, for example, can be a form of meditation. But what we see through research is that meditation helps alter brain structure and function, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish. So it's good for our gray matter, it's good for our white matter. Breathing exercises, learning simple, basic, calming breathing exercises is so fundamental to a good pain management program for yourself. And what it does is it activates, guided breathing exercises, activates a part of the nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system helps calm us down. It slows our heart rate, lowers our blood pressure, helps calm things down. So learning breathing exercises that do that helps calm the storm. Art therapy. Now, this is really interesting. We've been using art therapy at my center since about 2001, and we've seen a lot of amazing work done with our art therapists and our patients. And interesting, the way it affects processing of pain within the central nervous system, at the brain and spinal cord level. It actually can activate pain reducing or pain relieving pathways within our central nervous system, which is really, really interesting. And we know that art therapy can be really successful with treating trauma, and maybe you're aware now that the military has been using it now as well. Yoga. So yoga research shows, I think, is starting to find a lot of interesting neuroplastic changes that we get out of doing yoga. And I like to say yoga is therapy. It's not exercise. Don't think of it as exercising. Use it as a way of therapeutic processing, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So more on calming the storm. Moving on to harmful thoughts. So what we think matters, and the thoughts, the ideas, the attitudes that we entertain is going to have a big impact on the magnitude of our pain, whether or not it becomes chronic and how intense it is impacted by what we're thinking. I like to talk about some of the big three when it comes to harmful thoughts. The first one is catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is when we think something is a lot worse than it really is. When we think something, is probably really bad. And research, there's a lot of research done on catastrophizing in the world of pain. And what we find is that the more catastrophizing we do, the more likely we are to have pain that becomes more chronic, and the more likely we are to be on strong pain medications. But it's a hard thing. It's not something that we do on purpose. When we feel intense pain, our mind starts to run in different directions, and we can easily start to think about things in ways that maybe are more harmful than maybe they need to be. And definitely the words that we hear, have a lot to do with that. When we talk to our doctors or our healthcare providers and we're getting information, sometimes those words can sound scary, and it can lead us to triggering a whole cascade of catastrophizing ideas. Fear. So catastrophizing leads to anxiety, and a lot of anxiety about our health starts to lead to fear. And when we build up a lot of fear about our situation, about our health and what we can do and can't do, we start to get to that place of frozen that I was talking about. And we know that there's healthy fears that keep us out of harm's way, but we also know that there are unhealthy fears that we can develop based on how we think about our situation that can actually hold us back and keep us in a box as opposed to allowing us to get well. And then anger. So there's often a lot to be angry about, and understandably so. We might be angry over how we got injured or how our pain problem came about. Maybe it was somebody else's fault. Maybe somebody injured us in some way. It's easy to be angry or frustrated with our doctors if we don't think they're doing a good job, or with the insurance company if we don't think that they're doing everything that they should be doing to help you get well. And there's a lot of things to get angry about, but too much anger becomes a constant chatter in our heads. And the more that happens, the less happy we become. And you really can't have anger and happiness. You can't have anger and love. You can't have the important things that you really want. Remember, this is about having a great life. You can't have that if you're consumed with anger. So it becomes a thought process that has to get reprocessed. And we can replace some of the more harmful thoughts with more healing thought patterns. One of these is acceptance, and I always like to say acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance means that you recognize the situation for what it is, and you're able to move on and move forward, as opposed to getting stuck and not accepting something for what it really is can really zap you of a lot of time and energy and hold you back. Gratitude. So gratitude heals, energizes, and transforms lives. That is a quote from a famous gratitude researcher named Robert Emmons. A lot of interesting research on gratitude and how it improves our outlook and improves our health. And we see some really positive work there. And we know that patients in pain, patients with chronic pain particularly, have a hard time feeling gratitude, expressing gratitude, becomes very difficult to do. So actually engaging in gratitude exercises, whether it's keeping a gratitude journal, or reciting a few things every day, or going through some sort of gratitude process, can be very therapeutic. And then along with that is compassion, and being compassionate is responding to the needs of others. And what we find with research done on compassion training is that it improves our relationships, it improves our health, particularly our cardiac health, and it helps improve the quality of our lives as well as the longevity of our lives. And there are things that we can do to build compassion in our lives as well. One researcher came up with something called counting kindness, where we sort of keep track or write down whatever things that we happen to have done to help other people, each day, things that were compassionate. And then after a while, it becomes more and more a part of our mindset. And then the more compassionate we become, the more love we receive back. Exercise and the brain. So we know that exercise has a very powerful stimulating effect on brain function. And remember, we're trying to get function, structure, and function back. And I know that this is a hard topic because a lot of people in pain they have a hard time understanding how exercise can help when it seems to hurt to move. But this is an important topic. We see that exercise stimulates the production of neurotrophic factors, things that stimulate the health and production of our nervous system. Gray matter in the hippocampus, our big learning center, expands. So good exercise can actually improve memory and brain function. And it also improves other parts of brain function, including how we regulate stress, our motor cortex, which regulates the movements of our body, the somatosensory cortex, which improves how we feel what's going on in our body, our sensory system, how that works. And then other parts of the cortex that have to do with parts of our, attitudes and thoughts and feelings about different things. All these things get a boost when we exercise. Another interesting area, I think a growing, emerging area of research, has to do with the whole gut-brain connection. And we know that within our gut, within our intestines, we have this microbiome. And this microbiome, the composition, the way the bacteria, the different types of bacteria we have, and the different concentrations or levels of different types of bacteria, has a lot to do with how healthy we are, and what our health is like, what kind of chronic diseases we get, how well our immune function works, and even our mood gets impacted by our microbiome. And what we see is there's a two-way communication between the microbiome in the gut and what's going on in the brain. But these two, even though they're not anywhere near each other in our bodies, they seem to be communicating with each other in a very engaged and active way. And we know that the microbiome can be disrupted in a lot of different ways. Diet, certainly what we eat, the foods that we ingest is going to impact it. Medications that we take, pain medications, can impact it. Certainly antibiotics can kill out a lot of bacteria in there and really disrupt the microbiome. And then toxins in our environment also play a big role. I like to use the rule of 7 when it comes to this topic. And basically my rule of 7 is each and every day, try to have at least 7 different types of produce, 7 different types of fruits and vegetables. keep a list, keep track, whatever you got to do, plan your grocery shopping, but try to get 7 different things throughout the course of the day. If you can do that, you're really going to bring in a good level of nutrition into your system that's going to promote a really healthy gut. Sleep, I think, next to pain, I think the biggest complaint that I hear from patients is probably sleep and the lack thereof. So it's an important topic, but as we say, a good laugh and a long sleep are the 2 best cures for anything. It's a great Irish proverb. But what's interesting about sleep is it's also plays an important role in this neuroplastic process that we're talking about. And we learn that a lot of the changes that we're trying to create for ourselves get cemented and put into place actually while we're sleeping at night. So we know that the brain is a really active learner at night. If we're trying to, we're studying a language during the day, a lot of the consolidation of the information of the language that we're learning happens at nighttime while we're sleeping. We also know that research has taught us that when we don't sleep well, we feel more pain. The pain that we experience starts to become more intense and more problematic. So sleep hygiene is really important. And basically, sleep hygiene is learning specific tools and techniques of sleeping better, and ways that we can unplug and create a good environment in our sleep space, in our bedrooms, to promote a good night's sleep, as opposed to doing just the opposite. And I also want to point out, cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep works better than anything. Research has shown that it is the best way to improve sleep, works better than pills. And so if you have access to a local psychologist in your community who has some experience in doing CBT for sleep, and sleep is a big issue, I would definitely make an appointment. So we take all this in, we take all this information in, and soar like the good Harry Potter does here on his broom. I think that the take-home message in all of this is that there is a lot of empowerment, there is a lot of control that we have over how we adapt and overcome the challenges of our pain, which I think is great news. And I think the more research that gets done, the more we understand and learn about some of these things that we can help win this pain game. It's going to be an exciting future for all of us. And that's my contact. And most of what I talked about today is in my second book, Conquer Your Chronic Pain, if you're interested in reading more of that. And I know we're doing one for a raffle. And that's it. And I think we do have some time for questions. Am I right, team?
Yes, we do. So let's just take a look here. I'm going to, so right before we do the questions, I used a random number generator to pick the number 21. And so the 21st attendee of the webinar is going to win this book, like Dr. Abaci just said, and that is Carrie W. I'm not going to use your last name just for your privacy, but we'll be emailing you after the webinar to give you some details on how to get the book. So congratulations on that. We hope it's helpful to you. And again, that's Carrie W. is the winner of the book. As far as questions, let's see what we have here. Someone wanted to know just where you practice again, and that's the Bay Area.
Yeah, San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah. Let's see. And we got a lot of compliments and thank yous from people.
Well, thank you.
And someone was asking if you had any idea about exercise. You mentioned the studies that show that it can help improve mood and all kinds of good chemicals in the body. And they were wondering if that information was done, or that study was done with people who are in pain, or just like the average person, or
Well,
I guess are you?
There's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some interesting studies, obviously, on just health in general and exercise and how it improves brain function, actually even maybe reverses age-related dementia. But there's also some interesting studies on the impact of exercise on certain pain problems. I think in particular, low back pain is one where we see a lot of positive research on that. I think with other chronic pain problems, like for example fibromyalgia, it's always a challenge, to get the body moving with that type of situation. But finding clever ways of getting the body sort of moving, and doing things still yields positive results. So I think there's a little bit of both.
Okay, cool. We also have some questions. Let's see. A couple people that said that they're patients in your practice and that you're great. And they're asking if they can get a copy of your notes. And yes, we will post the webinar on our website so you can see it there. Let's see what else we have here. Someone was asking for your contact information again. If you could just maybe
Sure, I can.
share if the best is your website or.
Yeah, I can be contacted through my my professional website, which is Peter Abaci, ABACI.com.
Okay, great. And we'll do two more questions. One is, do you have any feelings about taking supplements or vitamins to help with pain?
I do. In general, for health in general, there's not really a lot of good support for using like multivitamins or taking a lot of vitamins as a whole. But with nerve pain problems, there is some I think research or scientific studies to support using certain things for nerve health, like alpha lipoic acid is one that comes up. That if you have a nerve pain problem, I think that might be, or nerve injury of some kind, that might be a reasonable supplement to use. We know that a lot of people are vitamin D deficient, particularly people in the in the Northeast and some of the colder climates. And if you're vitamin D deficient, certainly it would be reasonable to supplement with vitamin D. So I think there are some special instances where supplements play a valuable role, but they don't really take the place of a good nutritional strategy.
Right. Okay. Someone else was asking, so US Pain offers some support groups. We have both in-person support groups. We also offer 3 monthly conference call support groups for people who might not be able to get out of the house. And someone was asking, and that's all through a program called Pain Connection, if anyone's interested. But someone was asking, how you feel about support groups and what role those can play in this whole process of, living well despite pain.
Yeah, I think it can play a very important role. Actually, I have a chapter that goes into some of that in my book. And I think that, of course, the support groups can be a very positive or a negative depending on some of the dynamics. And it's important to realize that when people are coming together to support each other in healthy ways and share tips and advice that everybody can benefit from, those are awesome ways of working together and building a social network and kind of building a positive village that everybody benefits from. And I think when people are, for example, exercising together, walking together, I think that's infectious, and I think it just gets everybody more healthy. So I think there's really positive ways of doing that. I think if the support groups come together and there's a lot of toxic energy, being unloaded all the time, and that's all it is, and it just sort of brings people down, that's probably not going to be as helpful. So I think the dynamics of the support group means a lot, but I definitely think people, with chronic pain working together, I think get a lot more out of the, that interaction than trying to do it all by themselves.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, no, and that's, I think, our support group network was developed by a licensed social worker. So she's very conscientious about that, you want to be validated, you want to be honest, and talk openly about your issues, but at the same time, there's a limit to just focusing too much on the negative, and making sure that, it's a productive conversation and interaction.
Exactly.
Cool. So let's see. It's 2:05. So do you have time for one more question?
Sure, we'll do one
Or
more.
Okay, so last question is from someone who's asking, what advice do you have for like spouses or family members to sort of support someone who has chronic pain? Or I guess how can people with pain support the people supporting them?
It's a really good question, and it probably could write books on that subject. Being the caretaker or being the supporter of the person who is not well in some way. That's a huge role. It's a challenging role. It can be stressful. It can be exhausting in some cases. There can be burnout with that. How does everyone stay well in that process? Is definitely a challenge. I think it's important that there's good information, good education circulating about the situation, and that the interaction is not just all complaining, or it's not just being avoidant of each other completely. But I think when it's when the communication flow is more educational about this is what's going on, this is why this is happening, this is why scientists or doctors think about this, as opposed to you should be doing that or you shouldn't be doing that. And I think making it a little bit more the communication more objective, and so that everybody's on the same page and what they understand what's going on. I think that helps. But there's so much to say about that subject. We would need like 3 webinars.
Right, I totally agree. Maybe for a future webinar topic, we can delve into that. Okay, well, thank you so much. That's probably about all the time we have today. That was really wonderful. And anytime I can see Harry Potter worked into a presentation, I'm very excited. There's a lot of helpful information, and we got a lot of great feedback from everyone who's very appreciative of you taking the time to join us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
For everybody else, just a reminder that our next webinar will be November 20th. We're still working on a topic, but we'll get back to you with that. So just keep an eye out on the newsletter and on our website. And as a reminder, all of our webinars are recorded, and the PowerPoint slides are shared on our website at uspainfoundation.org/webinars. So be sure to check those out. Thank you all so much for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.